there, Dubbie crew. It's me, John, with another D&D update, as there's still so much happening here in the world of D&D. We are going to go over today with the OGL 1.1. My apologies, I mean 1.2. It's just changing so fast. It's like a software company. Isn't that exciting? I'm sure you're all thrilled about that. Now that we know some of the details that are proposed for OGL 1.2, I wanted to go over that with you all first to see what I think has actually changed based on my experience in working for large evil corporations and making them lots and lots of money based on the data that they use. Because there have been a lot of changes that have taken place since the release or the leak of 1.1, and then the recalibration of that, let's say, through Wizards of the Coast, the different release that came after that as 1.2 as it's proposed today. First, I am filming this on Friday. I think it's January 20th at this point here. There is a survey that is going out for anyone who would be interested to fill out through D&D. This is going to be your best chance to attempt to have your voice heard through the community. I know what you're thinking. Wizards of the Coast is not going to read those and action them in any way. And you're right. They likely will not read them or action them in any way. It is your best shot. You can either stay quiet and do nothing and let them march on ahead, or you can let your voice be heard. There isn't an in-between there. If you want your voice to be heard or have the chance of being heard, even though it is the tiniest little chance, this is your shot. What we'll do is we'll put the link up on our video if it's out by the time that we actually have this video released. If not, we'll do it in a future one, and I'll talk about that as well there. You should put your voices out. You should attempt to get heard. It's like your vote. Your vote matters. Everyone agrees with that, and there's been no problems in any modern country with voting. Or I'm not even going to go into it, is it? It's going to matter as much as your vote did. Good? Good? Yeah, we're all good. Anyways, OGL 1.2 as it's proposed. I know you think there's a lot of changes that have taken place between 1.1 and 1.2, and in a manner of speaking, there are. The new agreement is a lot shorter than the past one. It doesn't talk about licensing costs at all, and some of you may be wondering, does that matter? Without getting into the specific details with it at this point, I'll do that in a future video as well. No, it doesn't matter at all. All of that is still completely on the table. This is an open discussion, so Wizards of the Coast calls it. And this is a case where they're looking for feedback from the community to find out what they should put in the contract that they are going to change. And I want to be emphasizing, they are going to be changing the OGL. The idea of it still being under 1.0A, or the idea that enough competitors or enough losses would have them change their mind, is simply not true. And that's what I'm going to go over today, is some of the financials behind that and what I would be looking for if I were advising a company like Wizards of the Coast. I am not advising a company like Wizards of the Coast. I would stay out of this fight myself. However, if I were making a recommendation to a company of their size and of their profits, what I would be recommending is very close to what they are doing, assuming I had no soul. And I don't have one, so assume that's what I would do as well. Here's some truths that I think you all need to accept. This is stuff that I go over in every video that I do on these types of topics. There's really just the two so far. One, Wizards of the Coast is a corporation, a giant, evil behemoth of a corporation. And all corporations want exactly one thing: more money. That's it. More dollar bills. Dollar bills. They want to make it rain, but only on them. They only want the money cloud over them so that it rains on them and they get all the money. And then they'll use that money to invest in more money clouds and make more money. There is no end game to that. If you're wondering, won't they someday wake up and realize they have enough money? No, it will never work that way. It will always be more. They will always be trying to make more money. And I will emphasize trying. They won't always get it right. In fact, most companies get it wrong more often than they get it right. But if they get a couple things very right, they make oodles and oodles of money, and that leaves money aside for them to try other experiments like retooling the OGL, which we all love. You want them to have lots of money, right? That doesn't matter what you want. They will end up with lots of money. A second truth, and the one that's more personal to you, and I know creates a lot of anger, I hear you, I'm still telling you it's the truth because it is. A large segment of the players, I would say the majority of the players of a game like any of the games that Wizards of the Coast produces, so Dungeons and Dragons in this case here, the majority of the players are addicts. And the reason that's important is not so that you can accept it in your heart of hearts and make sure that you change all your behavior. It has nothing to do with that. the reason that you need to accept it as a fact is because Wizards of the Coast accepts that as a fact. And it actually dictates a lot of their business policy, knowing that a large number of their player base will not go to another game because this is the one they're addicted to. I know, and you all know at this point, that Dungeons & Dragons has competitors, and those competitors are operating by and large under the old 1.0 agreement. Everyone seems happy with that. The people who love Dungeons & Dragons get to continue playing Dungeons & Dragons, and the people who love playing other games that operate under similar but legally distinct different stories and different campaigns, say Pathfinder, for example, get to operate under the OGL, and they get to create a lot of the material to have overlaps and a lot of the material to be completely different. That's why the 1.0, as I went over in a previous video, is here under Happy Town. Happy Town is where everyone wants to be, and I'm sorry to say that Happy Town is being condemned. It is shut down as a town. It is going to be gone. It's not gone yet, but it will be gone. It's just going to be dead. Sorry, if you didn't clue into that already, that OGL will be dead sooner rather than later once they're done consulting. Over here is Poopville. Poopville's not where you want to be, but it is where you find yourself. And Poopville's where we started with the 1.1 OGL that was leaked out. Now, they've made giant changes, as I explained, and as we explained in the video previously as well here on WOTC'S, they are going to find this nice middle ground. It's just the middle's all the way over here still safely in Poopville. Are you even in the suburbs of Poopville? No, you're still just square downtown. 1.2 is right there because very little changes under 1.2. There are a couple key changes, one of which you should be terrified of. And again, I will go over that in a future video as well. But for now, I want to get into one of the main arguments that I've been seeing online through Twitter and through Reddit, which is Wizards of the Coast is only renegotiating this down to a 1.2 and potentially a 1.3 and a 1.4 in the future based on that collaboration with the community. The reason that they're doing it is we sent them a message. And we sent them a message by unsubscribing from the D&D Beyond and unsubscribing in a way that that is a metric that they're measuring and they can see that subscriber base going down. I've seen lots of figures going there. One kind soul on Reddit indicated that they had heard through a friend of a friend or through their local game store that something like 70% of the traffic had gone down. That would be insane. That's an insane figure. That's not the case. A figure that I've seen that would almost appear credible, I raise a lot of questions about this being accurate, but would almost appear to be credible, is 40,000. That's why I put that one up on the board here as well. Imagine a case where Wizards of the Coast lost 40,000 subscribers because of this situation, because of them having the leak with the OGL and having those discussions behind closed doors that are going to change their competitors and you as content creators, if you're making equipment that would actually be on the D&D site too, that content would now fall under a new OGL and you'd lose all of your rights as a content creator. I understand the fear. It's a very powerful one. It's a good motivation to be afraid of. And we had enough as a community. So tons of people went on and they canceled their subscriptions. And once that takes effect, because most of you would still be in your billing cycle and you'd still be giving them the money technically today when you canceled it, 40,000 fewer people are going to be giving Wizards of the Coast money. Yay, awesome, right? That's good, and that will change their mind because 40,000 people, that's a huge amount of money. Okay, let's do the math on that to put that in comparison, because for you or for me, yes, that's a huge amount of money and that would certainly change our behavior. The first question is, let's assume that 40,000 figure is correct, and let's also assume that somehow, through the miracle of miracles, all of those 40,000 people are at the highest paid tier for their subscription. That's impossible, just to let you know. There's no chance in hell that that's actually what's happened, but let's say that it is to make it as generous an argument as possible. 40,000 people at the highest tier, which I believe is about $6 US a month. That would make it at about $72 per year. Times that by the 40,000, so let's assume they're all at that high tier and they've all stopped paying that bill now, would leave you a little shy of $3 million per year. $3 million is not a small number. So at this point in time, assuming that all of those people have fully canceled their subscription, that they were all paying customers before, Wizards of the Coast would now be short $3 million after a year of this has passed. They would start losing that money immediately, and it's not part of their revenue. It would get worse than that too. Let's throw another $3 million on top of that, because those people who have canceled their subscriptions are surely going to do other things that change their interaction with Dungeons and Dragons as well. They're not going to be buying new material. They're not going to be buying new books and campaigns. They're not going to be buying new miniatures. Anything that gives Wizards of the Coast money, they're going to find a way to not give them money. I think that number of people shrinking to do that is reasonable. And what I mean by that is these numbers seem believable based on the type of work I've done for companies this size and larger. Expecting a massive change like this to lose 40,000 subscribers and the purchases that would come with that is reasonable. That number sounds believable. It sounds real. I would imagine that the average Dungeons and Dragons player is actually spending another $72 per year. It's probably more than that even. And that money will now no longer be going to Wizards of the Coast either. So let's say that's a $6 million annual loss. Okay. Now, for comparison, I want to remind everyone that the number of subscribers that D&D Beyond actually has, not paying subscribers, but subscribers overall, when Wizards of the Coast bought it last year, it was sitting at about 10 million. I would find it hard to believe that it's lower than that once Wizards of the Coast bought it from the company that had it before, I don't recall. So let's assume it was 10 million. So just to keep that in mind, 40,000 subscribers that have left is 0.4% of the total pool that's out there. Not as great a number anymore. But again, if it's all just paying subscribers, it might be a large number of the paying subscriber base that is left. Because if you're a free user, what are the odds that you left because you're not really withholding money from Wizards of the Coast at that point? Why not just keep your account and see what happens? Okay, all of that's fair. So let's take that figure for now, $6 million. Awesome. We're taking that right out of Wizards' pockets. They would have gotten that from us happily, but because they had the nerve to redo this OGL, they're not getting that money anymore. What does that do to Wizards' bottom line? It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. We don't know exactly how much money Wizards of the Coast makes. They're not going to indicate that. We can go through their past financials, which is the closest comparison that we can use. And I used their 2021 figures. 2022 figures aren't out yet. For their 2021 figures, Wizards of the Coast as an overall company, I don't know what the share would be for Dungeons and Dragons. Again, not a thing they tell us because as an evil corporation, they don't want you to know all of those details. Their operating profit last year, which isn't their final profit, anyone who's an accountant or knows that understands that, but it just gives us a figure that we can work with, was $548 million. So, out of all the products they make, all the magic cards, all of the Dungeons and Dragons accoutrement, every other product they have, every other paid service that they have, when you pool that all together and you pay for their costs in a gross sense, they're left with more than $500 million last year. Presumably this year is going to be something similar, maybe even higher. They supposedly had a pretty good year. How's that $6 million stack up to that $548 million? Well, it's a little bit more than 1% of their total cost. So not a huge figure based on percentages. $6 million is a large number. Based on their total costs, it's not. Now, that does not mean all of their profit is just sitting there in a bank account. It's not that simple. So this could be something that would affect them. Now you get into the math that Wizards of the Coast would be running, because the real question that matters here is, knowing Wizards of the Coast wants to make more money, the question that their internal analysts would be asking is, do we think that it's worth it for us to lower our profits for a year by 1% and all the operating costs that come with that for a chance to make significantly more money through the revision of the OGL? If I were their analyst and I were stating it's going to cost us 1%, so you're saying that these 40,000 people, they're gone for good. They're never coming back. Wizards of the Coast would probably say, well, remember, they're addicts. You really think they're going to not play their game and not buy anything new for an entire year? No one's going to buy them a gift, meaning that their money, someone else's money on behalf of you, went to Wizards of the Coast? Come on. You're also saying we're never going to get new players throughout the last year. It's not going to grow at all. Okay. Let's say all of that evens out and they're left with a hole of $6 million. Is that worth it as a bet? Because it's a gamble at that point to have a chance to get some medium-sized competitors or even large competitors to have to start paying Wizards of the Coast money through the new revised OGL. I am telling you all, based on all of my experience in doing that through companies, absolutely, 100% of the time, you would bet a 1% loss to your income for the potential of what this new OGL could give them. You all know this new OGL could give them huge amounts of revenue. If they in any way successfully manage to shut down one of their competitors, to slow down one of their competitors, to use the ideas that the community is generating for them so they can produce their own content under their own brand with the extra bulk costs all taken care of. All the inventing of the costs would have been taken care of by you as the content creator, and they just get to take that under the new OGL. Yeah, that's going to amount to a lot more than $6 million. If you're wondering if that's the only calculation that goes into it, don't they care about the community and the players and everything like that? I think many of them do, but a company's only point is to make money. They will always do the move that makes them more money. This one is a bit of a gamble, but it's a 1% risk. They're risking 1% of their money, and that's assuming no one else joins Dungeons and Dragons based on all the talk about it through the media, not the negative talk about the OGL, but the positive talk about the different shows, the different movies that are released, that's having a big resurgence. You have to assume that that resurgence stops and no one comes back to Dungeons and Dragons. As an aside to this, well, knowing that that's the case, won't this actually push a huge amount of people to, say, Pathfinder or something along those lines? Yeah, it probably will. But if Dungeons and Dragons is also growing, you cannot tell me that as an outsider to anything like Pathfinder that you even know what that is. As a comparison, right before filming this video, I talked to Grace. I talk about Dungeons & Dragons a lot. I asked her point blank, and she'll put it up on the screen. You just have to trust us. That's what you'll have to do, as to whether she even knew what Pathfinder was. She doesn't.
I did not know what it was.
If you were buying a gift for someone and you know they like playing Dungeons and Dragons, they are not sitting there telling you, as your grandmother or your aunt or someone who's buying you a gift, they don't know that you actually play Pathfinder and not Dungeons and Dragons. They see you rolling a bunch of dice and they see you as a nerd sitting at the table. You're playing Dungeons and Dragons. That's the only one they know. That means they're going to go buy something that's Dungeons and Dragons branded. The brand carries a huge amount of financial weight, and Pathfinder is nowhere close to catching up on that. No other competitor is anywhere close to catching up on that. You, the entrenched player, might know that. And you, as the entrenched, even the addict player, might use this as an opportunity to leave Dungeons & Dragons and go start playing Pathfinder, as an example. Okay, great. What does it do to their bottom line? Nothing. They're going to use this new OGL, whatever final format it comes out in, and make a ton of money from it. They're going to make just boatloads of money of it. They're going to have to invent some new kind of vessel to carry the extra amounts of money. And I know you're saying, oh, they'll just put it in bank accounts. That's not how money works. So why do you think money works that way, John? No, they're going to invent a new kind of boat, a new kind of special air boat just full of money. They're going to call it the Hindenburg. It's going to be filled with money, and it's going to crash, and it's going to burn, and it won't matter because they'll have made so much money. That's probably really disappointing for you. That's just too bad. That's what's going to happen through the OGL based on what I'm seeing from 1.2. The difference between 1.1 and 1.2 is negligible. If anything, 1.2 gives them more opportunity to make money. Instead of having to worry about what portion of the money would be coming through licensing, 1.2 in its current iteration just lets them shut down their competitors significantly more. They get to take anyone who's operating under the new OGL and say, you're no longer operating under it. Anything new that you've put under that, we've decided that you violated our terms and you're no longer in it. We don't have to worry about whether you're paying us any sort of licensing fee or anything. You're just not associated with it anymore. Shut it down or we'll sue you. And we'll sue you on our terms. And that contract would hold up. That's probably really disappointing. I know it's the start of a new year, and we were hoping 2023 would be a lot better than the dumpster fire that was 2022, but it's not going to look that way. If you're not on the side of corporations, at the moment, you're getting steamrolled by one. That's going to continue for a while. Your best bet, again, to stop that, would be, first of all, to inform yourselves. What's the best way to inform yourself? Subscribing to my channel. My channel's right here. It's got a button down below. You should hit it. You should ring that bell so that I can keep releasing content like this that helps inform you as to what you should do as a community next. subscribe, comment on the video, tell me where you think that I'm crazy and ugly and not knowing anything that I'm talking about. I'll engage with you. I'll tell you how you're wrong, but because I'm right about this, but I will actually engage with you to learn what types of things you would want to see discussed and analyzed in this way next. And in addition to that, if you can like the video and actually watch it all the way through so that we can go over those points together, that helps out me a lot, that helps out my channel a lot, which helps out my wife and my kids. It's just great across the board. We're not a giant evil corporation. Not yet. The second that I can make you guys all sign an OGL, I would, because the money's practically guaranteed. But at the moment, all I can do is ask you for your likes and subscriptions. So do that, please. Make me a giant evil corporation. Then you'll see what happens. Then you'll see. That's all that I've got. I'm going to end it there. Then you'll see. Bye.